So, meine Damen und Herren, willkommen bei The Stanley Parable. Das Spiel ist ja ausgewogen und langweilig und es hat kein Ende. Also alle, die das Spiel spielen wollen, spielt es nicht. Ihr regt euch nur auf.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
So.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way. Oh, and I guess this is where Stanley felt he needed to be right now. In this little hallway, here, with no distractions, to study room 417. Not to actually enter it. No. That would be far too forward. Stanley wanted to know it from the outside, to see it not just with his eyes, but with his heart. He would know room 417 as no man or woman had ever known an office before. That ladder over there. Oh, and that little picture of a horizon or something. It's all just a never-ending parade of joy for Stanley. No, apparently not. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Also, wir sollen jetzt die linke Tür nehmen. Ich nehme die rechte.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Yes, truly a room worth admiring. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Nö. Er möchte, dass wir hier lang gehen. Das machen wir natürlich auch nicht, weil wir ihn ärgern wollen.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't 5 years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley.
I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley. Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. Down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game
Bürobalkon zu springen,
and he called
Balkon ist gut
it the
gesagt, vom Fenster
Stanley
meinte ich.
Parable.
Uns hart auf den Boden aufzuschlagen und zu verrecken. Nur leider kann man das hier nicht.
He relived it
halt die
again,
Fresse, Alter.
and then again, and again,
Bitter.
over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Nö. Ich weigere mich. Ach komm.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I
Ja. Wie ihr seht, kann ich gleich wieder von vorne anfangen.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ausnahmsweise.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Oh mein Gott.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Ernsthaft, man, halt die Fresse und mach hin.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Ja, das wohl langweiligste oder fast langweiligste Spiel der Welt.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Langeweile lebt.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Da soll ich reinlaufen?
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Ja, ich hatte die Möglichkeit, aber ich werde...
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Ja, ich muss da runterfallen, um zu sterben. Nur werde ich nicht runterfallen. Oh. Habe ich ja erst getrickst. Haha. Na komm, sterben wir mal. So. Jetzt sind wir kurz davor zu sterben, seiner Meinung nach. Das werden wir jetzt sehen. Yep. Schön dunkel, man kann nicht sehen.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Sehr krass getötet. Tja.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in
Willkommen im Museum
advance,
von
death becomes
Stanley
meaningless,
Parabel.
making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Jo. Dup. Dappidi dub dub du 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 du. Dappidi dub dub du 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 du. Dappidi dub dub du 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 du. Warzone. Die Kriegszone. Ja, die hätte ich gerne erlebt. Du 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 du. Dappidi dub dub du 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 du. Dappidi dub dub du 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 du. Dappidi dub dub du 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 du. Ja. Das gleiche Zimmer gleich 3-mal. Warum? Weil der Spielemacher behindert ist. Jo. Dabidi-dub. Dabidi-dub. Dub. Exit. Dub, dabidi-dub, dub, 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 dub. Dabidi-dub, dub, 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 dub. Dabidi-dub. Wow, krass. Wie interessant. Eine Uhr. Aber nicht einfach nur eine Uhr. Es ist eine Bürouhr. Ja, das ist langweilig. Dub, dabidi dub 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 dub. Dabidi dub 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 dub. Ich kann nicht mehr sehen.
Well, try the other one.
Dappity dub dub dub. Dappity dub 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 dub. Jo.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much we need one another?
Ne, lol.
No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
Tja. Für alle, die es nicht wissen, ich werde jetzt
Listen
beim
to me.
Sterben.
You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's
Hänger.
path. Stop now. It'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time choose.
Tja. Das war's auch schon. So, und jetzt kommt der beste Teil des Spiels. Ja. Ohne was zu machen, wird das Spiel von neu starten, weil es behindert ist und ohne Ende. Ist das nicht schön? Ja, ich weiß. So. Ich habe keinen Bock mehr. Bis denn.